Welcome to another episode of the Wood Couture podcast. Today we have the absolute privilege to welcome to our show the one and only Ben Meyer, co-founder and creative director of Mendil Meyer. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you very much, Filippo. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, I'm very excited as I read quite a lot about you, and I must admit, you have an interesting journey. And the normal question I used to ask to people is, which is going to be quite interesting for you, is when did you find out that design was for you? But you have a beautiful quote on your profile that you got introduced to architecture at the age of 10. Jesus, that was early, Tell me about that.
My biological father was an artist, so I think there must have been a degree of kind of artistic talent or something in my bones. But it wasn't until my stepdad came into my life, and he was an architect, and that was at the age of 10. And I just became absolutely fascinated with technical drawing. Back then, everything was on, pens and tracing paper and drawing boards. And I'd often watch him at the dining room table creating these drawings, and I became fascinated by it. So for my 10th or 11th birthday, I asked for a mini drawing board and a set of my own ink pens and some tracing paper. And from there, that's how I really got into it. I just actually really developed the technical side before I got into more of the creative side. But it's just something that's really evolved over time. And yeah, it's an interesting way to get into it. I was a bit of a perfectionist. As soon as I made a mistake, I'd, rip it up and start again. So always wanted my drawings to be absolutely perfect, which was a bit of a blessing and a curse at the same time.
What was the best advice he gave you?
Good question. Lines on a drawing aren't lines. There's something in reality. So don't think of them as just being a bunch of lines. Somebody's going to build that or going to put it together at some point. So that was probably a big kind of lesson, because we can get, like I was, getting stuck on the perfectionism of the drawing, but the drawing actually needed to be something that was going to be created at some time. So that was some pretty good advice.
Wow. I love that. Lines are not just lines. Wow, that's beautiful, beautiful. Nicely said. Now, along your journey, obviously, through your professional career, is there any other people that you can consider mentors?
Yeah, I don't know that I've been guided by different people, but I've been a bit of a maverick where I've always wanted to find my own way. And I have been influenced along the way, but I tend to look at people and see what they're doing and think, well, how could I do that slightly differently or slightly better? And I don't like to use the word better, but you've got to always be involving and improving. We're definitely a less is more type of firm. So we like to do simple things really well rather than filling spaces with too much staff or trying to be over the top in our designs. We like to be timeless whenever we can, and that obviously allows our designs to stand the test of time. So that's super important to us.
Now, reading through the various bios, in 2013 you relocated to the US, to the Southwest. Why this change from UK to US?
So my wife, who's Anita Mendil, my business partner too, we met in London in 2007. She came to work at my stepdad's firm where I was currently working. And we just really connected. She was an interior architect, interior designer. I was just starting to forge my career. And it was the first person that I'd met that just had this different outlook on design and the world as a whole. She's German, but she'd spent time in the 2000s in America. She studied at the Frank Lloyd Wright School of Architecture. So when she first brought me to Arizona in 2009, I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved, obviously, the coming from London, seeing the sunshine every day was a big bonus. There was something magical about the desert here. It's the light, the natural beauty. It's not like a Dubai desert where it's just stand everywhere. There's so much beauty here. Not to say that's not beautiful, but there's so much beauty with the different and a lot of greenery, a lot of trees and cacti that adapt to the weather. So I saw why she loved it, and had our business for about 4 years in London, and we were just at that point of kind of taking off, and it was now or never. we were in our mid-30s. We just thought, let's go for it. Let's see what happens. No looking back, took that leap of faith, and 10 years later this year, here we are, still in beautiful Arizona.
So when you and your partner decided to go solo, to create your own studios, did you do like everybody else, business plan, budget there, or you just got together and start going with the flow?
It was early 2010 when we started our company in London, which back then was called 7 a.m. Design. And actually, it wasn't really planned. It was a last minute thing. And yeah, we just took a leap of faith. We had no money behind us. It's actually a fascinating story. We were looking at setting up a branch of my stepdad's company in London, and we had been to an event one evening, and we got out of the tube, and we were going to an evening event. And when we came out of the tube, we saw this beautiful office all lit up. It was on Old Street. And we were like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have an office somewhere like that one day? And then fast forward a month later, we start our business. We're working out of our spare bedroom, just outside of two of us on a desk on our laptops. And we got a call from an old structural engineer, and he said, oh, what are you doing? We heard you left. And we said, yeah, we've set up our own business now. Desperately want an office in central London. We need that pedigree. He said, oh, we've got loads of space in our office. Why don't you come and take a look? And lo and behold, where was it? It was in that building we'd seen up that day when we visited London. So it's just serendipity how these things take place. And from then on, we kind of took off. But typical struggles of an early business, we had an office address in London, but often couldn't afford the train fare to get into London to the office. So, we really started from absolutely nothing. So seeing our journey to where we are now in America, getting established is pretty rewarding.
It's incredible. And the reason I ask this question is because we did about 61 episodes. Where there's a large firm with 300 people, or where there's a two-man band, no one in the creative industry has ever started a studio with what they teach us, all of us at school. And it's amazing, it's fascinating when you see giants of the design, the architecture, or the size you are right now. And people just get on with it and just create beautiful places, and it's sensational, While other industries, they are very organized. Does not mean they succeed. Yeah, this is not a question of success. It's how people start the process of going. Now, shifting from being a designer full-time and managing now the size of the company you have you ever thought about, or have you ever had the fear that it may take you away from the bread and butter of designing?
Yeah, it's always a challenge. And I think going back to what you just said about a lot of companies just starting without the foundation of business plans. I mean, I'm sure there are lots that are, but, as creatives, that's not the way we often think. We're just thinking about producing the end product. That's all we care and are passionate about. But at the end of the day, it has to be a successful business. Excuse me. And as you grow, you're obviously taking care and responsibility for other people. So you've got to balance those two out. Yes, at times running the business does get in the way of what you really are passionate about, which is, creating the designs and the places and spaces for people to enjoy. But I've always liked the two. I've always liked the business side of things. I like to win work. That's one of my, big bonuses for me. That gives me a degree of satisfaction. But at the same time, extremely passionate and making sure that our handwriting goes into every design and the carried through the project.
Now, I love what you wrote on your website. I went to your website, and the first thing that pops up is purposeful design, continued growth, and constant contribution. 3 very massive statements. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, we're often trying to define our why, and like we just discussed, we can get caught up in the day-to-day running of the business or deadlines put on us by clients. But our whole ethos for myself and Anissa, and we're trying to really define that, is what are we trying to do in our world? What's going to be our purpose? And for us, it's furthering the hospitality. Excuse me, we just happen to do it through design. But those 3 pillars that we talk about, so purposeful design, we really are thinking about every project being unique. It's not a copycat of something we've done before. How can we make every day better than yesterday? How can we improve 1%? Continued growth is really important. We want to learn every day. We want to get better. We don't want to stand still. And then constant contribution, that's just us contributing to the hospitality industry in any way we can. So is it through the way we communicate with our own team, providing them an office that is hospitable, and then to our vendors, yourself, how do we communicate with you guys? And then the broader audience of the hospitality industry, all ultimately to benefit the guest experience. It's super important to us, and it's what makes us get out of bed every day. We're really trying to find something that fulfills us personally, and doing all three of those things for the ultimate goal of furthering the hospitality industry is what really fulfills us.
As a designer and as a business owner, I mean, when I say you, but also including Anita, obviously your partner, is are you trying to define your design style, or are you trying to be adaptive?
Yeah, we're always being adaptive. We've discussed that internally too. Do we need to be, oh yeah, you go to these guys because of that? For us, it's more of a philosophy of how we approach our design. Every project is unique. Every client is unique. Their needs are unique. So we try and adapt to that. We're in a certain wheelhouse of level of design in hospitality. We're not doing prototypical cookie cutter type hotel or restaurant design. It's very much individual. Anywhere where we can add value is the projects we like to get involved in. And we're getting to the point now, which is really great, that we can start to be a little more selective about the projects we take on. But timelessness is the big one for us. That's what we try and adapt. We try not to be trendy. Obviously, there are trends you have to pay attention to, but you don't want to be trendy for the sake of being trendy. It doesn't last. And then we also have a big philosophy around wellness. So wellness is a big part of our personal lives, but also something we want to bring into the world of hospitality. So whether that's, again, the way we treat our team internally, and then how that gets expressed in design ultimately for the guest experience at the end of the day.
What is the challenge in hospitality in designing experiences?
Yeah, experiences are important. I think you can always get the fundamentals right. So you got to make sure, as a base foundation, that the product works at the end of the day. So whilst we think about guest experience, we've got to put the team who are operating the hotel or restaurant's experience, on an equal level, because they're the ones who've got to deliver that hospitality experience. So first of all, you've got to make sure that whether it's a hotel you're laying out, it's got to work practically. How do the team navigate around so they can deliver the best experience? And then in terms of experience for the guest, a lot of it's fairly, it's the obvious stuff about integrating the sense of place into design. And then sometimes just something interesting, something that catches somebody's eye. Sometimes it's really subtle, maybe something that somebody doesn't see on the first time they visit a property, but it's kind of a little, a hidden little gem or a piece of irony that you kind of design into a space. That's super important for us. And then you have to create emotion. Emotion is what creates memory. So designing in emotion into a space is what really is going to cement that experience in somebody's mind and hold it in their long-term memory.
Between architecture and interior architecture, what is the split of your work?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed architect. Denise is an interior architect, interior designer. We are just people who create hospitality experiences, and whatever skill set we need to draw on from us as a team is what we implement. That's super important to us. We certainly aren't shell architects where we just build a shell and somebody comes and fills it, and vice versa. It's pretty rare that we just take a shell that's already been designed and fill it up from an interior design point of view. Find the best product for us is when we implement those two skill sets together from the beginning. So we design from the outside in and inside out. That's our synergy from the day Anita and I met, and it's something that we promote wherever we can. It's super important for us that we think about how those two come together. So the architecture plays a huge role, even if it's a heavy remodel. We're thinking in terms of architecture. How can we make this shell, this interior space, the perfect canvas, basically, for what comes next, which is then obviously layering in the interior design.
It's interesting because when you talk to people in general, and they, again, you have people that are very focused on architecture, people that are very focused on the interiors. But I always say to client, it's like when somebody create a nice body, but then somebody else is doing the dress for that body, which is the interior. And when, in my opinion, you need to have a firm that does both. Because, from the building biology to the salutogenesis, neuroaesthetic, the colors, the lighting, it's all built within the architecture, and again, separating the two, I personally don't see the logic of it, but, nowadays you go, people with different opinion. Now, I want to touch a point that, for me, shocked me. Out of 61 episodes, all the interior architects that we interviewed, they said 9 out of 10 client briefs we get, sustainability or, I say biophilic design, this kind of thing to make a better wellness of the place. No wellness as a spa, wellness of the place. Not even mention it. I was shocked. So it's a greenwash, what people talking. How do you think the industry can do better on that?
Well, yeah, I think we've always been proponents of sustainability. Wellness is different. So let's touch on sustainability. Sustainability for some people is a tick in a box exercise. It is greenwashing. It's very tricky to, I think, really understand and justify how doing something on the sort of level of one project is going to have that much of an impact. So I think it's more of a broad philosophy in the industry, is that everyone should start to adopt that as an approach as an industry as a whole. We see things like the LEED doesn't seem to be as prominent anymore. I think, again, it's very hard to justify to people or explain to them, this wall is 3 feet thick and we've got all this insulation in there. Nobody can understand that. It's not tangible. Now, it may have a positive impact on the environment, but I think we have to connect the human experience to the sustainability approach and really demonstrate to people how it has a positive impact. For that, there's the WELL AP, which is more of the human experience in the environment. So addressing things like light quality, air, materials that people actually think come into contact with, is really how you can start to get people to understand the impact, because how they feel in the space ultimately is going to be how they resonate with that sustainable approach. For us, and it's another quote that I put on our website, build to last is the biggest sustainability action I believe we can take. So whether it's building a building from the start, we look back to Europe, where we're both from, there's so much history there, is because buildings were built to last, lasted 300, 400, 500, 600 years. Whereas now there's so much impetus on doing things quickly and as cheap as possible. And especially for a lot of developers, I'm not going to put them all in the same box, but a lot of developers are developing to build to then sell on to, and then they're not really that concerned a lot of the time with how that building is going to last beyond what they need to do, which is obviously make a turn and profit. And then that comes down to everything, whether it's the cycle of hospitality is difficult, because even if you build something to last in a piece of furniture, such as your company, over time, that can possibly date from a design point of view. So whilst it might last another 10, 15 years, it doesn't necessarily match what needs to be refreshed in the design, the next design. So that's a tricky one. But just building cheap furniture that falls to pieces and thrown away in 2 years is not sustainable either. Knocking down buildings all the time just because it wasn't put out in the beginning is not very sustainable. So that's where we think of sustainability. How it really gets resolved in our world, we don't know how. It's going to take a collective mindset.
But you say wellness is different. That was your statement. Why is it different?
Yeah, wellness, again, you can have wellness washing too. It's a huge industry and people want to tick that box. There is a place for it in hospitality. Of course, there is people special, there's let's think of it as specialty retreats or destinations or spas that are purely focused on wellness. And you can go and have an amazing experience, take that mental break, go and learn something. Getting the wellness into the mainstream of the hospitality industry, the majority of hotels is tricky. There's a lot of hotel brands and chains trying to do it, which is great. I think the best thing you can do is educate people, because having a massage once a year or getting one good night's sleep is not going to change your life for the better. So what is it that we can do as an industry to educate people on how to take something away from an experience at their property that they can then implement every day in their life? The biggest one for us with wellness is getting a good night's sleep. If you get 8 hours of sleep every night, everything else, the decision making, the decisions you make around your own mental, emotional, physical health can all start to be made more easily. So if we don't sleep well or we go off track, that's when we miss a workout, we eat the wrong food, we don't feel emotionally or mentally stable. So there's little things like that. But yeah, I think there's an educational piece, but allowing people to get my sleep is probably the first proponent of wellness for us.
So back to basic, get the basic right, and the rest will be beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
Now, of all the project you guys carried out, is that one that you are very proud of, and why?
We've got a couple. One, when we moved to America, it's always a challenge getting established in a new country, beyond the through the process of visas and all of those things that just have to happen in the background that can be a huge distraction. You're just trying to get established, you're trying to get a name for yourself. And Anissa had worked in Arizona for a couple of years in the early 2000s, so she knew a couple of people, but she was working for other firms as a junior, so she certainly didn't have any pedigree. But when we got married here in 2013, we just happened to have our reception in a beautiful restaurant called The Mission in Old Town Scottsdale. And a year after our wedding, we were talking to the owner, and he was discussing with us how they're opening their second restaurant, and it's going to be this Italian restaurant that's going to touch all areas of Italy. And he said, you guys need to design it. And we were like, well, this would be phenomenal. This would be a real feather in our cap. Unfortunately, the other partner had already committed to another design firm, but by hook or by crook, we met the other owner, and they changed course. And with no portfolio to show in America of anything that we'd done, certainly no restaurants in America, they gave us a chance. And that restaurant, which is called the Fat Ox, it really turned out incredibly. They were a great client. Kind of had 3 clients in one. We had the front of house guy, Brian. We had chef Matt Carter, and then the owner, Mark Drinkwater, and 3 that they all had different requirements in the hotel, in the restaurant, and navigating all of those together. But we're so proud of that restaurant, and excuse me, and so grateful for them that they gave us a chance when they didn't know us. And it's really been a staple for our portfolio that has allowed us to move forward in our career. And then secondly, Savannah, which is a wellness resort here in Scottsdale. We took a dilapidated old resort that had pretty much been mothballed and turned it into a beautiful wellness destination. It has a 22,000 square foot spa that has 28 treatment rooms. We're just working on phase 2 now, which is a master plan for the other side of the property, which will have 2-bedroom casitas, meditation garden, a new pool complex, yoga pavilion, outdoor activity space. So that's a pretty special one for us too.
Wow. In the space of 10 years, you guys have accomplished a lot and won quite a few awards from New Age chapter for Arizona, which is brilliant. And
yes, thank you.
It's a good feeling factor, I would say, and now, considering that already you have 10 years on your belt, in the US, you see how things are going. Where do you want to see Mendil Meyer Studio going in the next 10 years? If we have the same conversation in 10 years' time, what will have happened?
Yeah, from a personal point of view, we really want to work on projects that matter. There's a purpose behind them. Align with clients that they're on their own mission. Like I said, wellness is big for us. Looking at those companies and brands where they're forwarding wellness, They're trying to positively make people's lives beyond just a good stay at a hotel. And this isn't woo-woo wellness. We're all human beings. We all like to have a good time. This isn't about going into just a sanctuary of this bubble and then on the other side. We're really passionate about how can we get wellness into people's everyday lives. And it's probably just that 80-20 rule. 20% of the time, yeah, we want to have fun and have drinks and party, but how can 80% of our daily life be, focused on great mental, physical, emotional health, and just really to make the world a better place? So that's our big vision. So working on projects like that across the board would be super important to us.
Do you have plans of expanding the studios to other states?
It's funny, when we moved to America, we'd left our company, we basically shut up shop in London and always said we're going to 100% commit to America. This is going to be our initial get established there and then start to branch out. So obviously we have a lot of contacts back in the UK, and Anissa's from Germany. So we always thought that it would become full circle for us, that we'd be able to establish ourselves back again, still living here, but yes, set up maybe a satellite office back in London. We just haven't got to that point yet. We've been so consumed in a positive way by getting established here that we're getting to that point now where we'd start to make sense. We're getting a client base that's international, so that starts to make sense as well. So yeah, it's definitely on our radar.
Wow. Now, and the day that you finally say, I hang my boots, I go playing golf or do whatever you like, how would you like to be remembered?
Just somebody who cared. I really, really want to make sure that people said, oh yeah, Ben cared. He cared about our team. He cared about our clients. He cared about our vendors. He cared about the hospitality industry, and that he made a difference. Like, this is all just work. This wasn't about us as a company, not about us as individuals. This was about, like I said, for us right now, it's furthering the hospitality industry. And if somebody says, yep, they did that, just 1%, I'll be happy.
Now, if I take a huge giant white canvas and place it on top of the Empire State Building, what message would you write on that?
I noticed that you had asked this question with other people. So I thought about it a little bit before, and a big one for me, and I think it's where we all get stuck in life. I would say everything you need is within you.
Wow. It sounds like a Tony Robbins, motivational speech.
It's along those lines. It's so important that we look for outside validation, or we're always looking at other people and what they're doing, comparing them to them, or they must have had this, or they had that break. But if you really look inside, you may need some help or some coaching or something to get you where you want to be. But really, it has to come from within inside you to get you to that place. And we're stronger than we think we are, and we're testament to that, having got established here in the US, and we've been through some pretty ups and down times. But if you just keep persevering and look to the future and have the faith and look inside, then you can get anywhere you want to go.